I'll open the meeting of the Freetown Board of Selectmen, it being 5:03 on December 16th, 2019. And I'll go to item number 1, which is snow season preparations for the Highway Department. I don't know what you know, George, so I'm going to read out a few items that Chuck has brought up. Chuck was due to speak to David on Thursday evening, December 12th, about a snow driver meeting he had. So, do you have any?
He didn't contact me about that.
Okay, he has not contacted David about the outcome of the December 12th meeting. He did indicate on December 11th that he had 5 drivers that were unavailable or unreachable. He did say that 3 of them were school teachers, and they had school on December 11th. So that's probably why they weren't available during the day. He has in the past, as I believe you remember, he has requested that 3 additional drivers who did not meet the deadline be added to the list of drivers. So that's probably the first item that we may take up, have some input from you on, is whether or not to allow these 3 additional drivers who did not bring their contracts in by the deadline should be allowed to be added to the list.
No, I would go along with that.
Okay. Lisa, do you have any input?
I just have a question. We don't have the highway surveyor here, but Tom, you're out plowing. Are you short? Do you feel that you guys are short-handed, or is it adequate? And if you're uncomfortable answering the question, that's fine.
Would help out if, like, school teachers are in, because then Chuck could probably move them around. So I would be in favor to put the extra drivers on, because you never know, a breakdown or something, anything's happening. But that's your call, not.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you guys were, if you felt like you didn't have adequate coverage, I guess.
My issue is that we have kind of driven home this fall about the fact that there was a deadline and that we needed them to be here by deadline. And I just think that every rule we put in place, I guess, Chuck has an issue with. And one of the things one of my recommendation may be is that after the meeting last week, and I am aware, the state gives a bonus to people who sign up early. And so I'm wondering if there shouldn't be a penalty for people who don't sign up when they're supposed to. And my suggestion would be is that these 3 drivers, if they come in and get on the list now, that they be paid at last year's rate because they didn't come in as they had been requested to. I know they beginning in early October, the highway department sent out a card advising them to come in if they were going to renew. We had other communications with them. So that's just a suggestion on my part.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we voted on when we did the snowplow contracts, to say that if they came in by a certain date, that they would get one rate, but if they were late, they would go to the previous year's rate. So it's kind of like what you're suggesting now.
How do you feel on that, George? Do you hear what was going on?
Well, I will go along with you guys if that's what you want to do, but I personally wouldn't go down that road. I mean, you want these guys to be as happy working for the town as they can be. That's a tough job. you're out there all night doing this, and to have them start working for us on a sour note, so to speak, I think is a little bit counterproductive. But I'll go along with it if that's what you feel.
I will say that it's not what I want to do, but I feel that we have to be able to plan. And there was a reason that we started out with these contracts in the first place, and that was because of some damage that was done a number of years ago by plow drivers. And so it is necessary that we know that they have the insurance. And I think in the future it's also important that we talk about licensing and make sure that the licensing is adequate. But
Yeah, that's I would go along with that.
okay.
But I think we should be a little bit flexible in case things happen. I mean, if some drivers drop out for one reason or another, we're tying our hands by saying, no, we can't hire anyone else. The deadline is over. I mean, I think flexibility it could be a good thing in this particular circumstance.
I'll say that's a point well taken, George. My only concern now is we hear there's this possibility of these people dropping out and so forth. Chuck was scheduled to have a driver meeting on the 12th, and he was to get back to David. He said he would. He was here last week. He said he would, and he hasn't. So my inference I would draw from that is that he did not have any problem with the snow drivers. But I'll just entertain a motion if someone wants to make.
I'm gonna make a motion to allow for the 3 drivers at the previous rate.
Okay, did you hear that, George?
Yes, I did. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to extend the deadline for these 3 drivers, but to put them on the 2019 fiscal year rate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to have to call a roll. Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Mr. Grunwald?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, yes. Okay, thank you, Will. Now, George, your time is still limited here as to what you can participate in, correct?
Yes, I'm still participating.
Yeah, okay. But yes, but your time is limited, correct?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to finish up as soon as we can.
Okay.
I don't want you to rush through, and we should do whatever needs to be done. But, I would appreciate being able to leave the meeting, as soon as is reasonable.
Okay, fine. There is another item that I think you may be of interest in wanting some input in, and that would be what is on the agenda is item number 2, which is the contract with Lakeville Community Access Media, or Lake Cam. They have the contract for Lake Cam expires the end of this month, December 31st. And they have forwarded to us a invoice, no additional contract for next year, but an invoice, and that invoice is at a rate of $7,500.
It's actually 12. Was it
Actually 15, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
15
did,
total, so seven.
Yeah, it went up.
75.
yes,
It went up.
but
Oh, yeah, it's 2 payments of
okay.
7,500.
All right.
I'm sorry,
Well,
I didn't mean to cut you.
well, there's 2 payments. One January 2020 to June 20. June 21. But anyways, the rate would be for a total for the year of $15,000, which would be a 20% increase over this year. And so, seeing that, I wanted to have a little discussion on that, because there is no documentation as to why the rate has gone up so significantly. So,
I mean, that doesn't sound very reasonable to me. This is second year in a row they've done this, right?
This will be
And
the
that seems an
third
awful
year
lot
of
of
the.
money.
The thing is that at this point, I'm just looking to the board for direction in terms of, do we want to begin negotiations with them again to see if, and do we want to do it as a 1 year or as a 3 year contract, and or just accept what they have as a non-profit? I believe there's an exemption in terms of procurement, but I'd have to check on that.
Well, I mean, I'm all in favor of exploring this a little more. The numbers sound very high to me, just for taping basically 2 meetings a month. And of course the annual town meeting and all that. But it does sound kind of high, but I don't really know what the going rate is and who else can do this. So what leverage do we really have?
Okay. The Lake Cam actually handles the school meetings, the sporting events, and other school functions. Middleborough does the selectmen's meetings. So this is for the school camera services, video services.
Well, if it's for the schools, why isn't this in the school budget?
But we each pay, I believe we each pay a portion of what their expenses for that.
George, my understanding is this: Lake Cam films the events that they do film, and then they put the activities, the filmings that they have done, onto our channel, our local channel, for viewing by Freetown residents, and for that they want the sum of money. Have I
To have it on
Our channel.
right? The Freetown Comcast channels.
Okay, so it's Comcast that's doing this.
Well,
Well, Comcast is airing it.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a
Comcast is
separate
airing it.
So it's a
Comcast charge for this?
No.
No.
They provide the material from the school committee meetings and for school functions such as basketball games and football games and other school functions, and they
No,
tape.
when you say David, when you
Lake
say
Cam.
they, are you talking about Comcast or
No, Lake Cam.
Lake Cam?
Lake Cam.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
they provide us some material to put on our channel, our local or PEG channel, public access channel.
Right, and don't they also put it on YouTube?
We do the YouTube.
They've
we
actually put it
do
up
the
on
YouTube.
Vimeo.
They put it on Vimeo. We put it on YouTube.
So George
Okay.
and Charlie, because you guys weren't here when this original one was done in, I don't think so, in 2018, David and I sat down. You came in at the end, Charlie.
Mhm.
David and I met with them and we reduced the rate down. And then that's when we came back to the board and asked that we have a separation of powers, sort of. So that's why we have free cam. So actually, this rate should not be going up, and I would suggest that the chair and the town administrator meet with them again to review what they're going to offer us.
Okay.
I would agree with that, Lisa.
Thank you.
When they originally came in with their proposal, I want to say it was anywhere from $25,000 to $36,000.
Yep. And then, but they wanted to go down to 15, and we said no, and that's why we separated. We did our own free cam, and then that's why we upload our things through them. So, I would suggest that the chair and the town administrator sit down and review it.
Okay. Then my.
I'll make that as a motion.
Okay. Just a question though. If we cannot get into a meeting before the end of the year, do we pay anything, or do we inform them that we want to wait and pay at a later date after we've had some discussion?
Yeah, I would just send them an email or whatever, a correspondence saying that, we wish to sit down and, negotiate this contract, that we're not willing to sign this. And we did that the last time too.
They're going to tape it anyway
Yeah.
because Lakeville is paying
Right.
for it.
I
Right.
guess.
So.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, David, you can negotiate with them, and actually, I'd like to get a little more information as to what they actually do.
Okay.
Not in today's discussion, but in the next couple of weeks, I would like to understand better what's involved.
Okay, I can do that.
All right, so, all right, so I'll entertain a motion, as to, what the board wants, the direction.
I already made that
Well,
motion.
okay, but, all right, do you want us to start negotiations, on the sum, or do we want to, get more information before we decide to go forward? I just need a little bit of clarification on that.
I think we should do both. We need to get clarification, really, at least for me, as to exactly what is involved with this, and what it, and also to sit down with them and negotiate. So you can almost do this the same time frame, say in the next 30 days or something like that.
All right, then, could you Tim, do you have the motion?
I think so.
All right. Just so George gets it, would you read it out?
To have the chair and town administrator sit down with Lake Cam to get clarification and to start negotiations in the next 30 days.
Okay,
That sound accurate?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, once again, the roll call, Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Mr. Grunwall?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, yes. Okay, the next item we'll jump to, I understand you had interest in, discussion of the proposal for the Department of Public Works study. So we'll go to that, George, for you next.
Okay.
George, do you know of the two proposals that have been forwarded to the board?
I saw them.
Okay, all right. One was from Municipal Resources for the sum of $19,500, and the other was for Community Paradigm for a sum of $15,000. I'll turn to you, George, and let you put some input in.
Well, I mean, that's 25% difference, and I don't know either company. Are they, the proposals that they've given us, are they equivalent, first of all?
Yes.
They base it on a purchase description that I had put together, or I had crafted together with input from the board. We had several meetings on it. The board had recommended certain changes. Both of those, I would say both of them address the original proposal. I can't, once again, I just want to clarify that and disclose that I have conflict here, so I don't want anything misconstrued in terms of my involvement with the process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this, David. You know both these companies, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, taking into consideration that you feel you have a conflict, but could you explain to us why 20,000, what the extra 5,000 would do that one company couldn't do for 15? Do you realize any difference between these two companies?
I can't. Once again, I can't. Once again, they bid on the same project. Both companies are competent companies. It's ultimately a decision by the board to decide which company you want to choose. They're comparable companies. Both of them have experience doing municipal consulting. It's the decision of the board.
Okay, George, I'll let David off the hook a little bit here. And I read both proposals, and they basically are mirrors of each other. I also have read studies by both companies, and they both were adequate. The municipal resources study I read was a Carver study, joining building upkeep and grounds upkeep into one unit for the town with the school and the town. The community paradigm study I read was I believe it was, slipped my mind now. The town in the Pioneer Valley out near Worcester, Hadley. It was a study that they did at the Public Works of Hadley. So both programs are similar, as we see. One is 19,500 and one is 15,000. So
well, if that's the case, Charlie, if the companies appear to be similar, and there is no reason to pay the extra 5,000, I don't see why we would.
Okay. Lisa, do you have any input?
I'll just go and reiterate what I said last time. I am not in favor of doing this. I think it's way too much money. And I'm in favor of doing an appointed position for the highway surveyor to start off with and then build from there. So that's my 2 cents.
Now, Lisa, what you just said is brand new to me. I was under the impression in order to change the position from a elected position that we had to go through this process and make changes to the town charter, basically. Are you saying we can just stop thing and appoint?
You need a town meeting vote to make the position an appointed position. This is just, and David or Charlie can speak to this, this is more of to bring all different entities under one public works. And after looking at the report and after looking at the prices, I just felt that it just didn't make sense right now for me. That's my personal feeling.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to agree. So if I understood everything correctly, we go to a town meeting to see if the town wants to go the road. And if they do, we can then appoint a town engineer. And then with an appointed town engineer that's qualified, we could then work on changing internal policies to do whatever it is that we're going to do. And is that a correct assumption?
Okay. I like to just clarify a couple of things, so just so everybody knows, George and Lisa knows. Presently, under the present chapter and section that is active in Freetown, we have an elected highway surveyor.
Yes.
Okay. There is no section that's sat in the law that allows for an appointed highway surveyor. There is two sections of the law. One which allows for the appointment of a street superintendent, and their power, they would be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So the town would have to do that. To get a street superintendent, they would have to vote to remove the highway surveyor from the elected position, and subsequently approve a street superintendent statute. The other position that's under law is for a board of public works, which would be an elected body, or well, under the statute, only an elected body, who would be much like our water commissioners are now, who would then name a superintendent of public works. What my initiative was to appoint after the town meeting approved and the state legislature allowed for a home rule petition, would be to appoint a director of public works who we would make the qualifications for. And it could be an engineer. That was my thought on it. And then we would have a board of public works with a director, could be an engineer if we so desired, and all the functions that public work functions now in the town would be under this director and under this department. My feeling on the study was I wanted some answers. You know, we see things such as costs for engineering, which we believe we could maybe do in-house, but however, we don't know. I think I spoke to you before. This is my notion that we could probably reduce the cost for a highway director, a public works director, by such things as what they refer to as peer review in the planning board and in conservation, where an engineer is paid by a petitioner to the board, to the planning board, or to the conservation commission with plans, because the boards don't know that much about the plans, the deepness of the plan. They're sent to peer review. And the other thing is, if we go out and we say, we think we can add this position or this function to a new department, I like to see that it's not going to cause more harm than good. And I just want facts. That's all. That's my idea.
I have one question before I say anything else. That question is, don't we have to, the first step is to go to the town meeting and request permission to appoint a town engineer, or whatever title we give this person. Is that correct? Is that the first step in all this?
Yeah. Well, that's the first procedural
That
step.
has to be the first procedural step, right?
Yes.
Well, then my recommendation today, because I see this as quite a complex issue with lots of different ways of dealing with this, I would suggest that we do a town meeting first, whether it be the annual or a special that we might have, and see if the voters will approve that, because I do believe this is going to be a contentious issue. And if it's not going to pass a town meeting, why waste the money up front? Does that make any sense to you guys?
Well, I can see the point. My only point would be is that in the discussion, if we had a study, we would have facts as to whether or not the idea of a Department of Public Works or any other step. I mean, I'll speak to both of you. I'm not saying that there isn't other ways of dealing with the present highway issues. My feeling is, I just think if we're going to do something, I don't want to do things piecemeal and have, when we should probably be doing them all at once. I mean, there are several other issues with other public works functions in my mind, and I feel that they should be addressed also. And the thing is, if we have someone outside who is an expert, doesn't have a jaundiced view, doesn't have an agenda or any political or connection, that would be far more accurate than we sitting down and thinking what we have our, as I said, we have our own notions and what have you.
And George, just remember, a couple of years ago, we did go forward, more than a couple of years ago, on town meeting floor for an appointed position for the highway surveyor. We could pull that and see exactly what that was, and how it was worded, and it actually just lost by two votes at the time. So it may be time to bring that forward again.
Right, yes, and that's exactly what I have proposed, and that's exactly what has been distributed to both of you before the article from that town meeting. I believe it was 9 years ago, which would be just what I surmised. It is a request. It was a voting to request the home rule petition be passed by the legislature to allow for a public works department, and it did not pass by a 41 to 40 vote, and I know who was one of the 41 at the time, because I felt that the board at that time was taking over a position where someone hadn't been given a chance. That person has been given a chance now, and unfortunately I don't think it is any longer appropriate to have a highway department under a highway surveyor. So, I mean, I guess we'll get back to the thing. Do we want to contract with one of these people and get some information to tell us what we might want to do, set down a roadmap for us, get a plan that would...
Charlie, I'm losing you a little bit.
Okay.
Charlie?
Yeah, you're still coming clear. Maybe I'm not...
Yeah, but you're not coming, you're breaking up just a little bit. Maybe you're getting away from the microphone.
Okay. But, well, my idea behind here is that if we do the study, we'll have all of our questions answered. We'll have a roadmap and a plan on how to go about setting up a Department of Public Works, and we'd have the information for the people when we present it to them at a town meeting. So that was my idea behind this. I will say that, you know, the sum of money is a little bit more richer than I would have thought, but that's as we can see, that's the marketplace.
Yeah. Personally, I still think before we spend a lot of money and extend a lot of effort into this, that we should go to a town meeting. And to bring this to a town meeting, we'd have to keep it relatively simple. If we make this too complex, you know, that could be not very successful. That would be my preferred method, to tell you the truth, before we spend a lot on this study. I mean, we know what we want. We can look at other towns to see how they're structured. And what we need is, you know, good reasons why we're doing this is more important than the detail and how exactly it would work. You still there?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, pass over that then now. We'll be passing over the item then.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Do you want to continue at all, or would you rather step aside?
No, is there anything else? else that
Uh,
we need to discuss?
Basically, there's mostly bookkeeping, but I'll continue and then we'll,
Do you wanna do number 6?
well, no, I don't believe that George has had time to.
Okay.
So we'll go on. The next item is a request for approval to forward to the Finance Committee a request for $250 from the Highway Department for the
Yeah.
overtime
Yeah.
account.
All the housekeeping, if that's all there is, I would just like to finish this call.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, number 9.
Okay,
Right.
then we can go, there's number 9, which is from the Personnel Board. And it's a discussion on whether or not, there's a number of employees, well, all employees now under the personnel bylaw, the salaries will be set by the Board of Selectmen from time to time. They have a list that has traditionally been set from time to time, and I was hoping that we could discuss that before the budget started, so that the department heads would know if there is going to be salary increases, what the salary increases would be. So I'll read the list. There's call firefighters, the EMA director, election workers, the registrars of voters, lockup attendants for the police department, the veterans agent, and other seasonal workers.
Yeah, no, that's okay with me. You guys can talk about that. I don't think that's controversial at all. Unless, is there any controversy about this?
No, it's just the way I understand it, it's just Ally's gonna look that up, and do some comparisons for us. It's just, how do we want to compare it? Do we want to compare it to surrounding communities? Do we want to go by the valuation of our town and population? So there are several, she can actually put in what we're looking for and how to compare them. So we're not comparing it to, somebody's valuation that is way above us or way below
Right.
us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay.
Well, but these are basically, the list that I read, basically is just, will be adjustments that we would, I would think that we would make in relation to, like a percentage.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you wanna do that, this
We
list?
can do it for all of them and then go from there.
All of these, or?
All of these and the ones that we
All
talked
right.
about last week.
I would make a suggestion, or I would make a motion that we raise the salaries for call firefighters by 2%. And my other suggestion would be that we, from now on, set them at the same percentage that we would set for the firefighter, the full-time firefighters. So basically, from here on, whatever the percentage of cost of living the full-time firefighters got, the call firefighters will get the same.
No, that's fine.
Okay, I'll make that in a motion.
I'll second that.
I guess I'm confused because I didn't know we were gonna stop voting on percentages or anything. I thought we were gonna review them, so I'm a little,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's how we started this conversation.
But, all right, I agree on the normal, the positions such as, health agent, building inspector, those type that have full-time, but these are just basically an adjustment. I don't think a 2% adjustment for firefighters would be something that would be out of line with what we've done in the past, or that our call firefighters are more or less paid than other communities. That's my viewpoint. That's why I make that suggestion in that motion.
Well, do we want to wait then till we get a reading from the other towns? The equivalent towns? Is that what you're asking for?
No, I'm not asking for it. I think it's basically a routine cost of living increase for them for the next year of 2%.
How about if we list everything that Charlie was just listing, come back at the next agenda and put down the recommendation on the side of it. So if it's a call firefighter, increase 2%, or if it's an election worker, minimum wage according to the, federal government, because I have no idea.
Okay.
Wait.
I could agree with that.
All right.
Then I'll entertain a motion to put this on the next agenda with suggestions from the board on, because there's nothing on here. All it says is salaries for employees covered under the general law. I didn't know that we were gonna start talking about what those increases are, so I'm not prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's reasonable.
All right, so we'll put it on for the next agenda?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
All right.
fine with me.
Whatever.
all right.
All right. The other things are just housekeeping, George.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, well,
And,
thank you.
Please
My
take
bad.
care of yourself.
My best wishes, George, to both of you and Joy.
Thank you.
All right,
All
take
right,
care.
guys. Hopefully I'll see you next meeting.
Very good, thank
Thank
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to do the reserve fund transfer request for the highway department for overtime
All right. Motion's
in the amount of
seconded.
$250.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On the
I'll make a motion to approve, you ready?
Yep.
The the ambulance abatements for November in the amount of $74,560.81.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anything to report, David, on?
I have a couple things. First is we did have the land auction, and I'm pleased to say that we received $248,000 in bids, the highest being 9 Cliff Drive in the amount of $172,182 Brayley Road, $37,195 Chase Road, $25,000. 0 Brayley Road, 12,000, 0 Burns Lane, 1,000, and 0 Brayley Road, 1,000, for a total of 248,000. These parcels will be going back on the tax roll, which is always a good thing. I just want to recognize the treasurer collector for all her efforts in pulling this all together, and basically congratulate her for some, good work in that getting the town, getting these properties back on the tax rolls and adding $248,000 to our revenue for the year. Second issue is I lost my sheet here. I did have a meeting today with there you go, with the Mass DOT, with Gene Fox and with Scott Kelly regarding the South Coast Rail. And I want to just basically give you the board, give them a heads up. They're going out with contract number 1, which is going to go out in February or March of this year. All of the construction work is going to be done in the summer. The first part of contract number 1 is going to be basically the part in a sonnet as well as the station site. Most of that work is going to be track work and will generally be done between 7 and 5, but there could potentially be some later work if they fall behind. They don't anticipate that. There also are 3 culverts, one in Beechwood, one on Forge and Elm, and one by Brightman Lumber, The culverts are going to handle differently than the track work in that they're going to go 24/7 with those to get them done as quickly as possible, so that it's not as disruptive as a result because of this shorter period that they're going to be using. They can generally do the culverts in a 48-hour span. They're generally done on a weekend, so there are no detours and there's no backing up of traffic. The station site right now, they have filled it and have graded it to a level of a parking lot. They're calling it what they call is station ready or pad ready. The actual construction of the station is going to be part of the next contract. The second contract number 2, is a much bigger project. That's going to go out to bid March and April. Once again, a summer project. One culvert on Brearley Road is going to take 5 days. There's going to be 3 crossings and some track work. The track work is not going to be as problematic as in, not that it's problematic, is not going to be as intensive and disruptive as in contract 1 in the Assonet area and bound by the station. There's going to be some tree demolition or tree clearing, I should say, which is part of their management and vegetative plans. They have demoed a property on 15 Forge Road. I don't know if you recall, but when we discussed the proposal previously, there was a lot of talk about a substantial wall going in that area. By demoing that property and taking it, the wall will be substantially smaller, and they ultimately would like to turn that parcel back over to the town. The one other thing that they mentioned is a part of the law that requires them to do Section 61 findings, which they try to use local contractors for. One will be an addition of a small piece of sidewalk by Stop and Shop. The other will be improvements to crosswalks in the station area on Narrows Road and Coppercut Road. So they're moving forward. It's going to happen. We're working with them, and as we're probably going to have a more formal team meeting in the upcoming months to discuss, the specific work and how that work will impact, anything that in terms of public safety and things like that. Emergency vehicles, public safety, school buses. So everybody's on board. We're going to give plenty of notice to everybody. So we had talked today about putting it on the website, doing a one call. Mass DOT also has a service that they send out email blasts and telephone calls to people to notify them if they sign up with the service of construction work in their area. So we're moving forward with that. The final thing I had was I did bring in 2 of the lights. So we had talked about the street lights, and I just wanted to show the board. This is going to be a roll of dice because I've never done this before. There's 2 lights. One, I just want to let the board see the kind of luminosity and the coloration, because there's a substantial difference in the color of the lights. That's going to reach over. I'm going to have to move this one a little bit closer. 2 different vendors. One's Cree, the other is Leotech. They're comparable in terms of price. They're approximately between $125 and $135, $140. Okay. I'm probably the most unhandy guy you could ever meet. Okay. There you go. That is one of the lights.
I can't even see it because it's blinding me.
They're both around 3,000 Kelvin. You'll be able to see the difference in the type of light that it actually is in terms of the color. The color is important because the color results in glare. And there we go. This is a slightly stronger light. Okay. I don't know how else to show you, but that the idea is that this is a softer light.
Okay.
This is a brighter light and results in more glare. So I don't know whether the board wants to make a decision about that, or whether that's something that how do we decide which color? I would probably go towards the more natural yellow light. Both of these will have an adapter on it that will reduce its luminosity between a set period of times. They both have timers inside them that allow them to, you could set it for 10 to 4, 11 to 5, however you want to do it. Reduces the light by 33%. No visual impact to a driver on the street, but does save us a substantial amount of money in terms of reducing the electricity that we use for either
So-
one of the lights.
The brighter light would be reduced
by 1/3 also. But they
Well,
both will
they
be
both
listed.
we would
reduced
reduce.
by
They both
1/3.
have that timer thing, that option that we can purchase. They're both in the same ballpark. One, the Leotech is a Taiwan company. The Cree is an American company. The Cree has a tendency to be a little bit higher, but it's this kind of fluorescent-y kind of light which causes glare. They did make some adaptations to so that it's not quite as bad as it once was, but there is still some glare that's associated with it. The other thought was that once we get to the point of installing the lights, I want to sit down with public safety, because the thought was these are 3,000 to 4,000 Kelvin. We were thinking in high traffic areas or intersections where there's a lot of traffic, using a higher capacity like a 5,000 Kelvin light to make it more visible in the area. So I just wanted to let the board know, see what you're buying basically, and looking for feedback.
Can you have some in some areas and the different ones in a different area?
We'd have the 3,000 in the neighborhood areas. It's a less bright light, whereas we'd have the higher capacity light in. They're both basically the same light. They just have a different. This is more of a fluorescent, where this has a sort of a lens on it that diffuses the light better in terms of glare. So. Oh, okay.
Yes, no.
He's referring to the brightness of the light being the temperature of the light. The temperature of the light doesn't necessarily reflect the brightness of the light. The luminosity does, and the wattage of the light, the wattage consumption. So there's a little bit of confusion.
I don't honestly. I'm just relaying the information that I was told in terms of the.
But
He didn't mention anything about wattage, but he did say about the luminosity, the temperature of the
number
light
of
is a
lumens,
Kelvin.
the temperature of the light is the color of the light.
The color of the light, yes,
Okay.
I agree with that.
The lumens is the amount of light output, is the quantity of light, so to speak. So that you can have the same lumens with the lower intensity light. The
It's a
only
different
issue
color.
that the board has to make is that when people drive in and out at night, you have night vision. Your night vision is affected when you get high intensity light. And
This-
we don't
this
see
light
that-
will
we
cause
don't
you to
see
do it.
that in the country. Okay, we see more of a, natural moonlight. So just when you make your decision to consider that, or consult with somebody who is familiar with that can maybe better advise us.
These are the two lights that the consultant had recommended based
And-
upon what. But the thing too is do you like the softer, like you said, the Kelvin, the more yellowy light versus the fluorescent one,
It's also
which
different
potentially.
when it's 34 feet up in the air. shooting
Yeah, it
down
diffuses
versus,
out. Yeah.
5 feet away from his face, he's gonna hopefully not drive into anything on the way home, sir.
I had my eyes dilated today.
I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
But no, it wasn't. But so the light on the left is going to beam out a softer
It's a softer color.
over the same area.
Same area.
The
Yeah.
same area, where the one on the right will be a brighter.
It's
at-
not
at the
brighter.
well,
It's just a
more
different type of
intense,
light.
yeah. Probably a little bit
Different
more
color.
intense. Yeah, a little bit more intense at the spot.
just think about it. I just wanted to give you an example. I wanted to show you specifically what it is that we're looking at in terms of doing. Like I said, in the areas where it's more of a public safety concern, one's going to be a neighborhood kind of light that's not quite as intense and as bright. The intersections where there's high vehicle traffic and more of a public safety concern, we're going to use a higher light for that. And the other thing is, I would suggest that it's not required that we purchase the module that allows us to set it till it goes down after a certain period of time. I guess, and I've been told once again that it's 30% less bright, but it doesn't really, in terms of the impact on the driver, it's not visible really to the naked eye.
Does the timer reduce the energy output?
Yes,
for the light.
that's
also?
the whole point behind it.
Also, it will puts out less energy. Plus, it's a little bit
Tiny bit less bright.
Less bright. So, if you lived at a intersection or so forth, it probably would be a little bit in the overnight hours.
Yeah,
between the sleep hours.
He actually took the thing apart. I can't do that because I'd never get back together again. But there's a little mechanism in there that's almost like a little timer that you can set it for the hours that you want it to go on and off.
Okay. All right.
And like I said, they're comparable. The Cree is a little bit more expensive than the Leotech. The Leotech is a Taiwanese company. I don't know if that matters to the board, but it is a tiny bit cheaper. So, but it is yellow light versus the bright light.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything else?
You're
Nope.
meeting with public safety on that?
I haven't up to
Okay,
this point.
no, I said you are though.
Yeah, we are going to
Okay.
meet, yeah.
Um,
When I get to the point of where we're actually going to, we just sent the contract back. Everything's probably going to be done at the end of January into February. By the time they clear their contract in terms of the purchase and then buying the quantity. It's not a lot of lights either. It's, between 85 and 90 lights, depending upon, get it if they're in stock, but maybe quick. Then we got to get a company to install them, take down the old lights, put up the new lights. So it won't be a big project, but it'll be done over a period of time. So
I just have a question going back to Mass DOT and the rail work. That's going to be, you said that's going to be done in the summer months?
what's that?
The Mass DOT summer construction? you
Yes,
said?
all of that is Mass DOT
Alright,
in the
so-
summer.
And you said that they were gonna keep, and Jean, I'm sure, will keep the schools in the loop, but, I think that you should, keep the summer camps in the loop, cause those are the ones that have buses around, so Cathedral Camp and, Camp Welch have busing during those summer months.
All right. All right, that's all I got.
Okay. Anything on the police station update?
Not really since last week. I mean, they did work yesterday because they're trying to make use of the good weather, just to get the roofing, to ensure that the roofing gets done. So, that's that. But we have a meeting tomorrow to work with the cell tower company, so we'll have something to report at the next meeting. That's it.
All right. And the last is item number 10.
We have a motion to appoint Lorraine Noel as an election worker effective December 17th, 2019.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.